good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you today. What I wanted to do before we got started here, or as we get started here, was really kick us off and look at a little bit of data that we recently gathered. The information I'm about to share with you came from a 2019 survey that we just did in November with top UK financial services companies. We had over 500 respondents to this survey. And what it really illustrates is that after 20 plus years of enterprise content management, a lot of these answers really haven't changed. So as we look at the stats here, literally 8 out of 10 of our respondents indicated that their systems weren't fully integrated. They indicated that they had over 9 different content management solutions that they had to search across, and they indicated that they spent more than 52 minutes every day of every week of every year just simply looking for information. And the challenges in terms of finding information was that the information was spread across different systems. They didn't know which system to look in, and they had challenges even understanding how to look for information in those systems. So if you think about that from a productivity standpoint, there's a tremendous amount of sunk cost in existing content management solutions. And as we talk about the future of content management, obviously artificial intelligence plays a critical role in that as well too. So you see at the bottom of our survey information here today that 60% of our respondents saw the potential of AI to automate mundane tasks. They also saw that same number, the potential for AI to transform their organizations and how they work with information. But at the same time, they identified challenges in terms of having the skills and capabilities to really work with this technology to get the benefits out of their organization. The net of it is that the old way of working with content and managing and simply managing content isn't working, and we're not solving the critical information problems that our customers are having with these legacy technologies. So let's talk a little bit about what customers are asking us for now and the kind of things we're hearing from customers that are contributing to this challenge of why the old systems aren't working. First and foremost, most of our customers are thinking about how they need to deliver information to different digital form factors. How do I deliver information effectively to mobile devices, tablets, cell phones, and how do I make sure that that information is easily accessible, easily findable across those different form factors? We talked about multiple information management systems, multiple content management systems, and one of the key challenges that our customers are facing today is how do I bridge across those information silos? For many of them, it's simply not possible to connect all of that or move all of that into a single system. So therefore, they need to think about how they connect those different systems together and access information across multiple information silos in their organization. We talked about AI. Clearly, people, as they begin to bridge these different systems, also need to think about how they normalize the data that's associated with this content. AI has tremendous capability to help with this problem. So delivering new insight and new intelligence is a critical requirement for our customers. When we talk about content, we also need to talk about new content types. Content has moved beyond just images, scanned images, documents in the organization, and includes things like social media. It includes things now like images from smartphones and even video that needs to be managed and delivered in this environment. So it's not enough to deal with traditional content types. We have to work with new content types that are transforming how our customers are working with their customers. We also, of course, have to think about governance and security, and particularly when we look at cloud adoption, and cloud is a key driver for our customers, we have to think about security in a cloud environment. We also have to think about how we manage content at a granular or atomic level from an overall governance standpoint, what we keep, what we protect, and ultimately also what we delete as an organization. Now, some other key requirements that we see, one is operating at an extreme scale. As our customers begin to bring together different content and information silos in their organizations, in many cases they're dealing with billions of objects at once. So being able to operate at cloud scale becomes a critical requirement for them. And then finally, as they begin to think about how they move off of some of these old legacy systems, in many cases they have dozens of different applications that they need to move into a new environment. And for many of them, they have new applications that they also want to build. So while we are operating at scale and bridging different information silos, we also need to make it very, very easy for people to build new applications, new solutions in these environments. So if we look at these modern content requirements, and then we look at some of the legacy ECM challenges, we begin to see the disconnect. First and foremost, ECM solutions are single repository solutions. If you want to take advantage of their capabilities, you have to put the content into their repository. Most ECM platforms are actually suites. In other words, they've been built over time through acquisition, and vendors have bolted together different technologies. Now, the underlying challenge of this is you don't get a common API set. And in a lot of cases, functionality is locked away in different modules. So if you want to access that functionality, one, you have to interact with a different API, and two, in many cases, you have to purchase that capability separately. These are older technologies. They're pre-cloud architectures. The challenge here is that makes them very expensive and difficult to scale out in the organization, and it also makes them expensive to own and operate. And finally, many of these technologies are also very difficult to develop on. So in many cases, it takes months, if not years, to build out complex content management solutions. So clearly, these technologies don't fit the kind of requirements that we're seeing from the modern content management customer. Content services, as we'll talk about during the course of the day today, is very, very different. First and foremost, these are multi-repository technologies. They're designed to link together multiple information silos, not to force you to move information into one environment. If you think about the advent of SharePoint, the advent of different sync and share solutions in your environment, it's simply not realistic to think that you'll be able to operate with one repository, and particularly one repository in the cloud. Content services technologies were built as singular platforms, which means they have a common API set, and all of the core capabilities are really architected into the core platform, which makes them easier to access, easier to integrate with. These are cloud-native technologies that take advantage of different cloud capabilities, which means they scale out very well horizontally. It means that they perform at extreme scale, and it means that they're very inexpensive to own and operate and scale to the needs of the enterprise. They provide low-code tooling, which makes it easy for you to develop new applications on top of. And one of the real beauties of more modern solutions is cloud consumption pricing, which means that you are able to buy and consume as the needs of your organization grow, rather than having to purchase a complete package up front. So we've talked about some of the differences of these technologies. Let's now talk about a specific example of an organization, in this case Santander in the UK, that has future-proofed using a content services platform, moved from a legacy ECM system to a new content services platform to accomplish a very important goal for their organization. First and foremost, we were dealing with an organization here that had a challenge with a growing volume of documents. We talked about extreme scale, in this case, more than 2.5 billion objects spread across different locations and different systems inside of their organization. They were facing increasing security and regulatory compliance mandates, and in particular here, GDPR. I talked about the atomic requirements for governments, and I'll give you an example of that in a moment as we talk about the solution, but this was a key requirement for their organization in managing customer information across legacy systems and in their new content services platform. Now, this is an organization that also had started down a homegrown path. They looked at existing technologies, in particular Hadoop, thought that it made sense for them to begin to develop their own platform because their legacy ECM solutions were not meeting their need. And after a year of development, realized that that was really a lot of sunk costs for the organization that they didn't need to be spending, and that there were existing modern solutions that were meeting their needs. Further, this is a very large banking organization. Santander is actually the 5th largest banking group in the world. They were growing very rapidly. So over the course of that year, that growth was exacerbating their issues and challenges. So from a solution standpoint, obviously they began to move and migrate information from their existing platforms into the Nuxio platform. I'll talk about the approach to that in a second. They also began to replace their legacy ECM systems. It was actually one system, 7 different deployments across their organization. And one of their key requirements from a solution standpoint, and I mentioned that this was a customer experience-based solution, was to seamlessly integrate with their existing customer service systems. So to be able to deliver information from their Nuxio platform into their customer service environment and give visibility to all of that siloed information to their customer service representatives. Key benefits from this solution: substantial cost reduction, removing the cost of those legacy systems, moving to a more modern platform. But more importantly for them was really being able to support new lines of service. So they were able to leverage a new mobile application and deliver this information across mobile devices to allow their customers to begin to self-service with statement delivery. They were able to promptly respond to subject action requests, and this is really important. A lot of their information in their system sat in concatenated data files, and what that meant was that customer information was commingled. And in order to address the GDPR subject action requests, they needed to burst out this information, store that information as separate documents, and then when they had a subject access request or a request to remove this information, to be able to access it granularly, and then remove the information, delete the information per the customer's request at a granular level. So this is an important governance transformation for their organization. But perhaps the most important outcome for Santander, and the reason why we've entitled this case study as Future-Proof Financial Institution, is that they wanted to lay a foundation with a content services platform for future development, for building new applications as the needs of their customers continue to evolve and change. And so utilizing a new, more modern platform, more modern development capabilities, they were able to adopt an agile DevOps approach and continue to roll out new applications on top of the environment. So a good example of how more modern content requirements require this customer to move to a new platform and therefore embrace new capabilities that allow them to better service their customers both today and in the future. Now, in a lot of cases, we get questions here about how do I move from where I am to where I want to be? How do I move from ECM to content services? In many cases, customers are very concerned about the challenge associated with moving multiple systems, moving potentially hundreds of millions or billions of documents across that. And to this, we really say take a more rational approach to modernizing your environment. Because of the way we're able to connect and bridge across silos and federate information from existing environments, you don't have to move everything at once. Big bang approaches are very risky, and they carry a lot of challenges for organizations. So in this circumstance, what we really encourage customers to do is think about how to connect to existing data and content sources immediately, and then over time look to consolidate those different systems onto a common platform, which helps them to get to many of the ROI and key business benefits that they're desiring. So with the Connect strategy, what we're really looking for here is how to immediately integrate to multiple repositories. It allows our customers to extend the value of their existing systems, while at the same time getting very rapid return on investment because they can move very quickly to build their first application or set of applications in their new environment without having to worry about moving every single application that they currently have in place. The other benefit here is that this allows them to quickly establish a modern foundation, a consistent foundation for their modernization efforts. Then, over time, as we think about consolidation, what we're really looking at here is getting these organizations to reduce their reliance on legacy systems, decrease that total cost of ownership as they begin to rationalize some of these systems, move to more and more of a cloud environment, leverage new cloud technologies, and finally end up at a point where they have a single future-proof platform. So your opportunity immediately is to connect, and then over time begin to consolidate to get to the benefits that you want. So there we've talked about a more modern approach to content management, how we can easily move you across that environment, and then finally put you in a position to take advantage of that new technology and consolidate those investments. So with that, Stephen, I think I'm at the end Thank you, everyone. I would certainly like to encourage all of you to read more about content services platforms. We're happy to offer you the Gartner Magic Quadrant as a free bit of research to help you in your journey. I appreciate your time today.